I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I thought I had it all figured out, married to the woman I loved, planning a future together, and honestly, I thought she was the one. Her name was Jessica. We met in college, hit it off right away, and for a while everything seemed perfect. She was smart, funny, a little bitchy sometimes, but in a way that I found charming. We got engaged after 2 years, and I was ready to spend the rest of my life with her. But then things started to change. At first it was small stuff. She'd be late more often than not, or she'd brush off my questions about where she was when she wasn't answering her phone. I just figured she was busy or stressed with work. She was a marketing executive, so her schedule could get crazy. Still, I had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. She'd get defensive if I'd ask her about her phone or her whereabouts. She'd roll her eyes, call me paranoid, or say I was overthinking everything. Our wedding was supposed to be next month. I was excited, proud of us, telling my friends how lucky I was to have her. But a few weeks before the wedding, I started noticing tiny things that didn't add up. Phone calls when she thought I wasn't looking, weird messages on her social media, and her being strangely secretive about her phone. One night, she stayed out late with her friends, and I was waiting up for her, as I usually did. When she finally came home at 2 a.m., she looked flustered, and her makeup was smudged. I asked her where she'd been, and she just snapped, saying she was at a bar with her coworkers, that I was paranoid and trust issues were ruining everything. That night, something didn't sit right. I looked at her phone the next morning, and there were messages from some guy. "Can't wait to see you again. And don't forget what we talked about," the stuff that made my stomach sink. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the way she reacted, clamming up, her defensive tone, her quick change of subject, made it clear she was hiding something. I confronted her about the messages, and her response was that I was reading too much into things, that she was just talking to a friend, that I was jealous and insecure. But I knew better. The weird part, I started noticing she was acting even more distant after that. She'd cancel plans with me suddenly, say she was working late, or she'd be on her phone constantly when she thought I wasn't looking. One day, I caught her deleting messages from her phone when she thought I was in the shower. That's when I knew she was hiding something. I felt sick, betrayed, like everything I believed about us was a lie. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? And for what? A few nights of sex, an affair. It all seemed so calculated, so cold. I couldn't believe I had been blind to the signs for so long. I was furious and absolutely devastated at the same time. It felt like my world was crashing down, and I couldn't breathe. The betrayal felt like a punch in the gut every time I thought about how she had lied to me for months. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she be so cold, so manipulative? It was like I was living in some twisted nightmare. I decided I needed to find concrete proof, something undeniable. I didn't want to confront her without evidence because honestly I still had doubts. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe I was imagining things, but I knew deep down I was right. So that night I went through her emails and phone backups, and I found the evidence I needed. Photos, texts, even a few explicit messages exchanged with a guy named Mark, her coworker, or so she claimed. That bastard was over at our place last summer just before the wedding. I remember seeing him leaving her apartment late at night, looking like they'd just finished having sex. I couldn't believe it. That's when I realized she wasn't just talking to him. They were sleeping together. And apparently she wasn't just cheating, she was pregnant. I found a photo of her ultrasound sent from her phone with a message that said, "Our little miracle from last August." That's when I lost it. My mind kept racing. How could she lie about everything? The wedding plans, the future we had made, everything. I felt sick, angry, and numb all at once. I was furious at her, but I was also deeply hurt. How could she do this to me, to us? She had always been so bitchy, so sarcastic, but I never thought she'd be capable of such cruelty. My best friend Ryan was somehow involved too. I found messages between her and him, talking about how they couldn't keep their hands off each other during her stressful week. I was staggering. My best friend, my wife. The woman I thought I knew had been lying, cheating, and sneaking around for months, and I was only just discovering it now. I remember feeling my knees go weak. I sat down on the couch, clutching her phone, staring at the screen like it was a loaded gun. How had I missed all these signs? How had I not seen the truth behind her bitchy facade? That's when it hit me. I'd been blinded by love, by hope. I'd believed her when she said she loved me when she promised no one else. Turns out she'd been lying all along. She was pregnant with Mark's kid, and she'd been lying about everything, hiding her affair, hiding her pregnancy, hiding her true self. I did sleep that night. Instead, I just sat there staring at her texts, her ultrasound photo, the messages from Ryan. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. That moment, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't let her keep lying, keep stealing my life away from me. I had to hear her explain herself, or at least I needed closure. But honestly, I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was this. Everything I thought I knew about Jessica was a lie, and I was about to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told myself I had to confront her, get answers, and see what her version of the story was, if she even had one worth hearing. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my nerves in check, but my hands were trembling. When she finally walked through the door, I could see her attitude shift instantly. Defensive, snippy, like she already knew I had uncovered something. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice cracked just enough to betray her. I looked at her and kept it simple. "We need to talk about last summer, about everything." Her face darkened and she rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go," she snapped. "You're blowing things way out of proportion, Mike. I don't know what you think you found, but you're overreacting. It's just some stupid messages and I don't see what the big deal is." I didn't bother to sugarcoat it. I pulled out her phone, showing her the evidence, the texts, the ultrasound photo, the message with her name on it. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked genuinely shocked. Then her bitchy side came out full force. You're crazy," she spat. "That's all bullshit. Someone must have hacked into my account or something. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. You're jumping to conclusions because you're insecure." She laughed sarcastically. "Honestly, Mike, you're so paranoid. I don't know what you want from me." I was boiling. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. "Jessica, don't lie to me. You've been cheating on me with Mark, haven't you? And you were pregnant last summer. That's why you've been acting so weird. How long has this been going on? How many nights have you been sneaking around behind my back?" Her face twisted into a mask of annoyance. "Oh, please, you've got no proof and you're just accusing me because you're jealous. Maybe I was stressed, maybe I needed some comfort, and yes, I talked to Mark. So what? It's not like I'm gonna hurt you. You're making this into some big deal. You're just insecure, Mike." That was the breaking point. I was so furious I could barely speak. My fists clenched. "You lying bitch. You're pregnant with his kid and you think you can just brush it off. Do you actually believe your own bullshit? I saw the ultrasound. I saw the messages. How could you do this to me, to us?" She stood there, arms crossed, giving me that bitchy, dismissive look. "Look, Mike, I never promised you anything. You were just some guy I was dating and I got tired of waiting around. Mark's the father. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it. I don't owe you an explanation. Honestly, I don't even think I want to be with you anymore." That's when I realized she was just trying to gaslight me to make me doubt myself, but I already knew the truth. She'd been lying for months, and her attitude was just a way to keep me from exposing her more. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and pure disgust. I couldn't believe I had let someone so manipulative into my life. I'd been a fool to believe she loved me. I told her to get out of my house. She scoffed, threw some snarky remark about how she'd be taking the pregnancy test soon, and then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, staring at the empty space where she'd just been, feeling like my entire world was shattering. Nothing hurt more than seeing her walk away, knowing she'd been lying and cheating, and I'd stayed blind for so long. That moment, I knew this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about trust, betrayal, and realizing I'd been living a lie. After she left, I was left in a silence that was almost deafening. My mind was racing, trying to process everything I'd just uncovered. The betrayal, the lies, her coldness, everything suddenly made sense in a way it never had before. I felt this crushing weight on my chest, like a ton of bricks had been dropped on me. For the first few hours, I kept replaying the moments, the late nights, the secretive phone calls, her dismissive attitude, and I kept asking myself, how had I missed all of this? How had I been so blind? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the couch, staring at her side of the bed, feeling empty. Every memory, every promise she'd made just seemed like a joke now. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to me all this time, just waiting for the right moment to drop her bomb. The worst part was knowing that I was the last to find out. She'd been living her double life behind my back, and I'd been completely oblivious. By morning, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her walk out and pretend like nothing happened. I decided I'd confront her again, this time with a plan. I needed answers. How long had she known she was pregnant? Had she been planning to tell me at all? What about Ryan? Did he know she was pregnant? I was furious at him too. My best friend involved in this mess. How could they both do this to me? How could I even trust anyone anymore? I reached out to Ryan first. I needed to hear his side, see if he knew about the pregnancy or if he'd been kept in the dark just like me. He admitted he knew about the pregnancy. Jessica told him last summer, right before she told me she was going on that business trip with her coworkers. He said she was emotional and scared, but he also admitted they'd had sex in her apartment after she told him she was pregnant. That was when I lost it. My best friend had been sleeping with my wife, and all I'd done was trust them both. It was sickening. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive. I thought Jessica was bitchy and manipulative, but this was cold, calculated, wicked. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, not with her lying around somewhere pregnant with my child, if she was telling the truth, which I now doubted more than ever, so I made a decision. I contacted a lawyer, started planning my next move. I told her I wanted a DNA test to confirm paternity, and I told her I wanted her out of my house immediately. I wasn't going to be played anymore. I wasn't going to be used or lied to. I had to protect myself, my future, and whatever shred of dignity I had left. It felt like I was on a roller coaster. One minute I was furious, the next I was just numb. I kept asking myself how I'd let this happen, how I'd trusted her so blindly, and how I was supposed to move on from this. The hardest part was knowing that she didn't seem to care about any of it. She was just dismissive, bitchy, and she kept throwing out these cold, dismissive remarks about how she'd do what she wanted, how she didn't need me anymore, and how she'd be taking her miracle with her. I realized she'd been planning this all along, keeping her pregnancy secret, lying about everything, just waiting for the right moment. I knew this wasn't something I could fix or forgive. Not anymore. I spent the next few days feeling like I was living someone else's nightmare. Every time I saw her name or her face in my mind, I felt this surge of betrayal and rage. I kept telling myself I'd be okay, but honestly, I felt shattered. This was the kind of betrayal that leaves you questioning everything. Could I ever trust again? Could I ever look her in the eye and not feel sick? I'm still trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces, but I know one thing: she's gone now, and I'm done being the fool who believed in fairy tales. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings, sleepless nights, and endless self-reflection. I moved out of the house. I couldn't stand to be there anymore, surrounded by the ghost of her lies. Staying felt like giving her more power over me, so I vacated, leaving her and whatever life she was trying to build with Mark to their own devices. I knew I had to focus on myself now, on healing and rebuilding what little trust I had left in myself. The lawyer assured me the paternity test would clear things up, and I insisted on it. If she was pregnant, I needed to know the truth for sure, whether that meant stepping away for good or figuring out how to deal with whatever came next. Meanwhile, Jessica kept trying to reach me, sending angry texts and snarky messages, claiming I was scaring her, calling me paranoid. She told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. But her words meant nothing anymore. I saw through her entire act, that bitchy, manipulative facade she'd been hiding behind for months. I also started seeing a therapist, needed someone to help me process the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the anger. It was hard. Every day I'd wake up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, but talking to someone helped me sort through the chaos inside. I realized I'd been holding onto hopes, dreams, and promises that weren't real. Jessica was a liar and her whole existence had been a lie. But I also learned to focus on myself, what I wanted, what I needed to move on. One day, the results came back. I remember sitting in my apartment, staring at my phone, feeling sick with anticipation. The lawyer called me and I almost didn't answer. When I finally did, I heard the words I'd been dreading. Mike, the DNA test confirms that Mark is the father of the baby. For a moment, I just sat there, stunned. It was like a punch to the gut all over again. But once the shock wore off, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. At least now I knew the truth for sure. Jessica tried to contact me again, crying and begging, claiming she was sorry, that she still loved me, that she didn't mean for any of this to happen. But I wasn't buying it. I knew her too well now. She lied too many times. All her tears and apologies felt hollow. I realized she wasn't truly remorseful. She was just trying to save herself, to keep some semblance of control. I made a decision then. I wasn't going back. I was done with her manipulations, her lies, her bitchy attitude. I was going to focus on rebuilding my life. I started dating again, slowly. It was hard. Trusting anyone now feels like trying to rebuild a house with no foundation. But I knew I had to try. I had to believe that I deserved better than the betrayal I'd endured. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this mess. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people are better at hiding their true selves than you think. Jessica was never really who I thought she was, just a manipulative, bitchy woman who lied her way through life. I don't regret what happened, because it taught me to trust my instincts, to set boundaries, and most importantly, to value myself more. I don't wish her any ill will, but I do hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, just not with me. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: don't ignore the signs. Trust your gut. And if you find out someone you love has been lying and cheating, don't be afraid to walk away. You deserve honesty, respect, and someone who truly values you. Because in the end, the betrayal might crush you for a while, but it also teaches you how to be stronger. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Be stronger, move on, and never let anyone lie to me like that again. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've grown, even if it doesn't always feel like it. The pain of betrayal is still fresh, but I've learned to live with it, to accept that sometimes people are just not who they appear to be. Jessica was a master at hiding her true self, and I was naive enough to trust her blindly. That's on me, and I own that mistake. But I also see clearly now that I can't control what others do, only how I respond. I've been rebuilding my life slowly. I got rid of the old furniture, the reminders of her, and started focusing on my career, my friends, and my own happiness. It's not easy. I still get days where I feel angry or sad, but I remind myself that I deserve better. I deserve honesty and respect, and I won't settle anymore for someone who plays games or manipulates me. I've become more cautious, more aware of red flags, and more determined to protect myself from falling into the same trap again. One thing I've realized beyond everything else is that I was lucky to find out the truth sooner rather than later. It hurt like hell, but it saved me from more pain down the line. I think about what would've happened if I never found out, if I'd gone through with the wedding, only to find out later she'd been pregnant with someone else's kid. The thought makes me sick. Now I see it as a blessing in disguise, a brutal lesson that I needed to learn. Most days I feel a strange sense of relief mixed with grief. The relief comes from knowing the truth, knowing who she really was all along. The grief is from losing the woman I thought I loved, from the shattered dreams of our future. But even that pain is part of healing. It's a reminder that sometimes love isn't enough. People can lie, cheat, and manipulate without a second thought. Trust is earned, not given blindly. As for her, I hope she finds her happiness, even if it's not with me. I hope she figures out what she truly wants in life, away from the lies and the games. But I won't be part of that anymore. I've closed that chapter and I'm finally focusing on myself. I know I'll be okay. It's not the life I planned, but it's the one I have now, and I'll make it better. I'll move forward wiser and more cautious, but also stronger. And that's what I want others to know. Sometimes the hardest lessons teach us the most. Betrayal cuts deep, but it can also cut away the illusions we cling to, revealing what's real. Trust yourself, listen to your instincts, and never let someone else take away your peace. Because in the end, it's your life, your happiness, and your future. And nobody, not even the biggest liar, can take that away from you unless you let them.